names, which is perfect, and I'm seeing some faces, which is also great. To fully follow along, you need to have the buyer list of steps that I've emailed you, the buyer questionnaire, and the buyer's guide. Those are all the things I emailed to y'all if you RSVP'd. If you didn't and you don't have the attachments, you may have to attend next month, because I've got to teach now. I can't stop an email. Basically, the reason we're going to need those 3 things is we're going to be editing and working off of those 3 things. And this is going to, when we wrap up the class, you're going to have your buyer packet for the most part. There's a little bit of homework to this class. So you and I will continue to talk. Everybody is you. And also, it won't hurt for y'all right now to get a little notepad if you can, or on your phone, somewhere you can take notes or write down scripts, because I will be doing that in this class as well. It's a pretty fast-paced class because it's a lot of material I want y'all to have by the time we hang up. And I want to give you a lot of information. So here's how I made a list for myself to make sure that I could tell y'all how the class is going to go. If you have questions throughout, and this is what I do when I'm teaching live as well, so this is no matter what, start writing down your questions on a piece of paper or on your phone or iPad, and then I will stop periodically in the class and say, okay, I'd like to, if we don't have too many, take some questions. That's when I'm going to address questions. And I might have you like raise your hand or put your thumb up. If there are too many people with questions, then I might say, can't do it right now in essence of the class. And then the next step will be, I schedule a one-on-one with y'all. I'm happy to do that. If every one of you guys in this class and you didn't get your questions asked, I am more available than I've ever been during this time. So don't be afraid to send me an email and say, Lynn, I'd like a little bit more clarity. I didn't follow very well. Would you please schedule some time with me? And at the most, all we need is a half an hour. I don't know if Sarah Graham is on here, but she can testify that I am spending time outside of this class to make sure that this class is effective as it needs to be. So I will make time for you. That's it for what you need to have in front of you. Jane wrote, I see it, but I can't open it. If you mean the attachments, then I'm sorry, I can't help you with that right now. I sent you 5 attachments. That 2 of them are Word documents and 2 are PDFs, so that everybody's computer should be able to open. That's a technological problem I can't help you with because I'm an idiot. So just go ahead.
If anybody needs that resent, just type your email in the chat and I'll get it resent to you while Lynn is moving forward on this.
And Scott, hopefully you're seeing the chat over to the side now. I'm seeing everything. I know it's there. So, okay, perfect. So Joseph, are you going to help me with that? You were muted. What?
Yes, I'm going to look it up in your email and then I'll send it to everyone. Just put your email in the chat.
Perfect. I just sent everything to Manuel. So you'll find some sent items immediately just went out to Manuel. They're 2 separate emails. That's how you can do it. Thank you so much, Joseph.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So, do you go by Manny versus Manuel?
Manny's fine. Yeah.
All right. So, second little bit of housekeeping. This Zoom class is an hour and a half. It never goes very much shorter than that, only because I do stop and allow for some dialogue. So if you have not allotted an hour and a half, then go ahead and be prepared to send me an email, because you probably will leave the class before you get everything you need, and we'll make sure that we follow up with you and take care of you. Introduction. I'm Lynn. Y'all read my emails by now, probably explaining to you why I'm teaching this class. I'm actually going to exit out of the chat so it doesn't distract me, if that's okay. I'm going to let Joseph handle that. Joseph, you're amazing. I love you, babe. So I am the buyer agent on our team. And as you read in my email, I won't spend much time on this. I've only worked with buyers. I took Keller Williams Ignite from the very beginning, and I followed their instructions. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized, because I teach Ignite, I teach the buyer session of Ignite, that a lot of agents are not actually taking the homework home and doing it. And I realized they were having very chaotic buyer agent experiences. I had to streamline my system. I didn't have the opportunity to, I had the time and the opportunity back in 2008 to hone this system. So now my goal is to teach people what I do, use the Ignite documents, because over the years, my mistakes and my victories brought me a much more concise set of documents. So now I'm going to walk y'all through what you need to have. I think that's the most important in all these documents. And then you're going to have a less overwhelming packet to send to your buyer. And you're going to have the most effective questions to your buyer for your consultation. Does everybody follow along with that? If not, too bad. Write a question down. I'll answer you later. So let's first do this. Let's pull up that buyer agent list of steps. That was the first attachment that's just telling you what your job should be as a buyer's agent. We put together an operations manual. Saltmarsh Properties has an operations manual. And part of that process for me was to get my job down on paper. So now I have it really easy to send to people. So this is what's in our operations manual. If we ever were to hire a buyer's agent, they would have to follow this in order to be hired by us. So that's where this is coming from. So let's start with the first one. So your job is to represent a buyer, but there you start, obviously, when you get their information, you have to start interacting and make communication. And then the minute they close, there's also then a follow-up program that, 36 to convert. You stay in touch with them. This is going to walk us through it. I'm going to go through it very quickly because y'all have had this in your hands and you have it in front of you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But what I did do recently, which is helpful for me too, is I added these checkoff marks. Okay, so let's go to numeral I or 1 or whatever. So a pre-consultation. So what your job as a buyer's agent, even if you want to be a slam dunk listing agent, like I said, the faster you can get your buyers under contract, the faster you get back to lead generating for listings. So this is going to be super valuable to you, even if you have no interest in working with a lot of buyers. So this was a confusion I clarified over the last week. There's the term buyer consultation or your buyer's consultation. That is to describe the process of you sitting down with your client and going over your buyer questionnaire or needs analysis and your buyer's guide. Those are two separate documents. They are discussing two very different things. And I'm going to explain to you those differences, but I want to make sure everyone understands that when I say buyer consultation, I'm describing the act of consulting using the buyer guide and the buyer questionnaire. Because in my world, I call it the SMP, Saltmarsh Properties. I call it the SMP buyer questionnaire. I don't call it the needs analysis, but I know that Keller Williams does. So hopefully everyone's tracking along with me. Roman numeral 1, whatever, pre-consultation, pre-home tour, you're going to, and this is important, I want y'all to follow with me. You get the information of your buyer. That could be a signed call. That could be a referral from another agent. It could be a referral from a friend. We will not go into the details right now of what it looks like if it's a cold internet lead or whatever, but I have a canned email, a canned first touch for cold buyer leads as well as warm buyer leads. Reach out to me later after this class if you say, I'd like to know what that is, and we'll talk more. So as for the purpose of you running your job properly, you're going to get the information of the buyer sent to you somehow, right? You're going to send a thank you note to that referrer, assuming, I'm sorry, I'm getting a text saying they can't get on the Zoom. It distracted me. Joseph, I might send that to you, but it's a little unfortunate. She can't find a Zoom, Maraide, M-A-R-A-I-D-E, cannot find the Zoom link. If you can help me with that. If you have a referrer source, you send a thank you note. If you do not, that does not apply, right? It's just a cold lead, let's say. Now you have a check off. You can say you've completed it and you can write out the date. Obviously, where I have the words completed and date, y'all need to have blank lines where you can write the date. So your most efficient way of running your business is to be able to track how long it takes you to get back to those clients and how long it takes them to get back to you. You'll start to learn the rhythm of your own buyer business. Sometimes it takes them a week. It could be 24 hours. Okay. Next step is the buyer's agent reaches out twice. The first is an email, there's a description, and then there's a phone call. It is crucial for me that I began to only email first. I never called first. Even if I'm sitting there doing my nails, I email them first. I wait an hour or two and then call them. And here's why. I learned early on that if I called them without having a system or something in place, they began to unload on me, and I all of a sudden was catching that information and I was no longer in control. And I learned through many classes, going to many family reunions. So this is all education that I've learned. I needed to figure out how to stay in control. That was how I was going to be able to run my buyer business, because I could have 5 or 6 buyers at one time when I was super busy, and I had to manage that by myself. And for the protection of our marriage, I had to figure out a better system because I was nutso. Okay, so I reach out on email first, and on that email are those attachments I've listed. Then I wait an hour or two, let's say, and then I would call them. And the email, I have a canned email. So the email is it spells out for them, I will be reaching out to you. I have a schedule that's sometimes difficult to align perfectly, but here are some items of value before I call you that you can be looking into. Because sometimes I would get a referral information maybe right before I walked out of the door and had 3 hours of showing property. So I thought that I can actually send this, let them know I know that they want to talk to me and that I have a schedule with buyers. I can't talk right now. But they immediately have something from me that's organized, that looks good, the spelling is correct, it's branded to me, and it gives them information without asking anything back from them. So think cold lead. You might be building a relationship, even if in the beginning they don't want to talk to you. You've already set yourself apart, because if you can get their email, they have all these items of value. I've listed what they are. I'm not going to list them out loud because you can read. Then I would call. And when I would answer the phone, if they answered the phone, I would establish if they've gotten my email and if they had time to talk. If they did, then we would consult right there and we would talk through everything. And I think it's even more important now. I used to do consultations in person, right? If I could. We don't have that luxury as much anymore, but most of my business ended up being, half of it, I should say, was out of town. So most of my consultations were over the phone. If they answered the phone and they said, no, I've not seen the email, then I say, well, I just wanted to touch base with you, let you know I'm alive, and I want you now to go check your email. I have items of value for you to start learning a little bit about me. And then I want you to respond to me of what time would be good where we both can sit for about 30 or 45 minutes. So even if I were available, but they hadn't had a chance to look at that consultation stuff, most of the time I tried to get them to go back and do that. If it turned into where it was like, if they wrote me back and said, I haven't had a chance to look at this, but I have a time available this afternoon, then I would schedule it. Okay. So you make a phone call first. You email first with the attachments. You then call them. That call is going to dictate your next steps. The good news is you now can say, well, I'll give you a few minutes, go pull up your email. We can go over this together, right? If you don't get them on the phone, you say, hey, it's Lynn. I just sent you an email with you don't say items of value. You say with a couple of buyer resources that I send to all of my buyers. When you get a chance, look at your email, write me back, and then let's schedule a time to chat. So they have a voicemail for me. They then go look at the email for me, and I'm pretty impressive at that point when they see all that I've sent. Third step, consultation, but you have to set that appointment. You put it on your calendar. That's why this is really detailed, because some people are not real good about their calendar. That's not an excuse. Part of your step as a buyer's agent is to put it on your calendar. So that's one of the steps. Then you've also confirmed the date with the buyer. Again, you need to get in the habit of, once you've put it on your calendar, sending a confirmation email to your client and look like you're in charge of things. Your goal is to make them feel confident in who's running the show. Then you conduct the buyer consultation. That's where you make a plan of action. Here are all your check marks of what you need to be doing. Then you have a post-consultation email. Again, it's a canned email. It's part of my system, which I will share with y'all. But as some of the past students know, I don't share it with you until you've done your homework. I'm very strict about that. So the good news is you're going to have an easy way to do this homework at the end of this call, but you will get my canned email. So when you're like, what are you talking about? You'll see them, just not right now in this class. It's too much. Okay. So you send your post-consult email. And then as you can see on that list, depending on what the consultation provided, you might be sending them MLS homes. They may say we have to close in the next 30 days. And so, they are in a major, they're A buyers. You might not be sending them MLS links. So just keep in mind that phone call is going to dictate, but I've given all options that normally can happen after a consultation so that you can check that off for your own organization as a buyer's agent. Lots of times in this class, people ask about the buyer agency agreement. We're going to table that conversation if we have time till later. If we don't get to it, send me an email and say, I'd like to hear how you handle that, and I'll be happy to set a call with you. Okay, buyer's agent then schedules homes and asks for 2 items prior to showings. And then the next page is basically, so this is your full checklist as a buyer's agent. We're not covering all of this today, but what the good news is you'll notice in under contract to close, which is number 3, that I send a 3rd email saying they're under contract. And then it begins a system of emails from 1 to 9. I have all of those saved. I'm happy to share them with you, but as long as I know that you are starting off the process right, which is what today is about. So we're not really focusing on contract to close today, but you do have the full checklist. So you can begin just learning what you don't know and finding out how to ask those questions. All right, now we're going to move.
Really quickly, Lynn, just to clarify for everyone, the checklist that Lynn's talking about, that went out on the original email for the class. So if you don't have it, just drop your email in there again and we'll get it to you.
Thank you. All right, I've told you how you're going to ask questions of me. You're going to send an email to me for a one-on-one if anything kind of doesn't get covered. And then again, I'm going to reiterate, I do this monthly. I teach this monthly. So if you just don't get it all, come back to the next one. If we don't fill in the gaps in between, I will make sure that you are a fully functioning buyer's agent. Okay, so I'm going to take a minute. If everyone is good, either give me a thumbs up or do the thumbs up icon. And if you're not in front of your computer and just listening, that's fine. I'm just saying here could be an opportunity for questions. If you don't really have any, I'm going to keep moving forward. Let me go to the chat screen one more time. Unlike anyone has any questions, but that could be a good place to put your question. I just might miss them. I'm a whole bunch of do this, but then don't do this, aren't I? Okay, let's start with the buyer needs analysis, also known as the buyer questionnaire. Go ahead and bring that up to the forefront. We're working on that first. This is going to require the most amount of edits. So it takes a little bit longer, or is the majority of the class, I should say. Okay, so back to why am I sending these documents? Again, Keller Williams said, if you want to get every listing possible, you better have a good listing presentation. I think the same rule applies on the buyer side. If you want to have the least amount of chaos, but most importantly, let me say, it's not always about you. If you want to make sure you're providing the top-notch customer service and your fiduciary responsibility is, then you absolutely have to be organized about it. I've had a few conversations over the course of teaching this, and people have often said to me, I have a system, it's simple, but I realize that it's so simple, I might be stressing my client out. And bingo. So what we want to do is we want to not stress the client out. And the way you do that is from the very beginning. If you are all parents or not, I'm not a parent, but I've been around children. The fact is just like children, when they know who's in charge and there are boundaries set in place and they know that you're watching those boundaries, they intrinsically just relax. Part of my consultation is discussing with them how they're going to have a lot of information coming at them. They are not obligated to remember it all. That's my job. That's what I've been spending my career fixing and making sure it's perfect. You know, I use those kind of words so they have confidence. I'm not being a braggart. I just want y'all to hear what I say to them. You know, my job is to keep you with as little stress as possible. Obviously, our slogan, the Salt Marsh slogan is, you know, an exceptional experience. And Joseph and I sat with that for a while because we realized that the most important thing to us about real estate was their experience from start to finish. And then that guided how we wanted to run our business. So I'm explaining that to them. I'm telling them how this is what I do for a living. So anything you forget, if you ask me the same question 16 times, that's okay. That's part of being a buyer. So I build rapport. I explain to them that I'm in charge and I won't forget one detail. And then I say, okay, so let's get started. And the first thing I do is we review their questionnaire. Now, going back to when you send them an email, you noticed on that list of steps, there's a group of documents you're going to want to send to them. That is a vendor list, which if you don't have, you need to put together. We can talk about that. That's outside of this class, talk with Lynn about it. So you're going to need a vendor list, which gives them all of the people they need to call. And think about the fact that if you have a cold buyer lead and you don't know anything about them and they won't return the call, they won't email you back, there's a good chance you're going to hear from a loan officer that Tim Smith reached out to me and you don't even know who Tim Smith is, but he's using your vendor list. Okay. So you want to put together a vendor list, and Ignite teaches us how to do that. So all the stuff I'm teaching you has already been taught. I'm just reiterating it. So you want a vendor list? I put together a locals guide. I took time one day and basically identified all the different areas of Charleston. You know, you got Somerville, West Ashley, Johns Island, James, Mount Pleasant, downtown, and now Nexton possibly. Nonetheless, what I'm trying to say is I then went and grabbed about 10 to 12 local things that happen. Like I went and found the farmers market link of Somerville, the farmers market link of Johns Island, the farmers market link of Mount Pleasant. I then found public marinas. I found public golf courses. I found the public parks that have the splash and all that. They're all over Charleston. I found 3 to 4 restaurants that were in the hub of those specific areas. So in West Ashley, I went and found Avondale restaurants. On James Island, I looked right around, I can't remember what I named, but probably right there where Earth Fair is and some of that, I did that. And then there's Folly. Don't forget about Folly. I did 4 or 5 restaurants that I knew that if they went to that location, they'd get kind of an idea of what the recreation spots are of that little section. Obviously, I did the Mount Pleasant Town Center. James Island does not have a town center, but they have the little area where Steinmart is. I guess that's considered West Ashley, but you're following me there. Take some time and do a locals guide, because if you have someone relocating, you've given them things that they can start to see themselves living here, and maybe get them more excited about moving and buying. Okay, the other thing, I do blank South Carolina contracts. So I go and downloaded an agreement to buy and sell, the due diligence addendum, the buyer's agency agreement, the seller's disclosure, and then the South Carolina agency brochure of like how relationships work. I don't fill any of those out. I just bundle them all in one on a PDF and send it to them, because they're not all going to be South Carolina purchasers. They may be moving from Ohio, so they might want to see some of those. You just know that if you have a high C, they might read everything verbatim, and there you got it for them. You've overcome any kind of objection, so to speak, of where's the information from the real estate agent to educate me. There we go. Okay, that covered everything you want to copy. All right, so let's get started on the buyer's needs analysis, also known as the buyer questionnaire. I went and looked at what I sent to you guys. If we're working off the same document, it's going to be 16 pages. Today, we are going to drastically minimize that. I also realized that when I did this for y'all and sent it to you, that I had a bunch of blank pages. So I'm going to say delete. The first thing you're doing, the first page right here, you're going to want to brand yourself. So that's why I had you download whatever is editable, because what you want to do is where you see Keller Williams, you can go into this document, double click on that and change that header. You can change it. Like, let's say I were working on my own. Let's say I'm an independent agent. I don't even have Saltmarsh yet. I was just Lynn Klosick. I think I did LBK, just did my initials because I wasn't sure yet what team name we were going to come up with. So I did like LBK, my number, my email. You know, back then Facebook and stuff wasn't as heavy as it is now, but right there, you're going to want to put wherever you market yourself. Then this title needs, you're going to need to choose one of these titles. It's totally up to you. Like I said, I preferred the word questionnaire. That's just what I stuck with. So mine is called the Saltmarsh Properties Questionnaire, Buyer Questionnaire. So they know they're getting a buyer questionnaire. I do have a logo. I have a slogan. I have a watermark. I've made it pretty. So note, make it pretty as much as possible. If you aren't super creative, it's not a big deal. I'm just saying a little bit more. If you like to do that stuff, that's acceptable. All right, go to page 2 of 16. Everything in front of y'all on that one should be blank. Write the note, delete. This page does not need to be blank. I screwed up, okay? So just know to go in and delete that page. Same note for page 3 of 16, delete. You do not need to have 2 blank pages in front. I screwed up. Okay. My mom is shaking her hand at me. She said she wouldn't let me say screwed up. That was not nice language. Okay, so if you look on page 4, buyer needs analysis or questionnaire, notice that header. Again, make it uniform. Whatever name you choose on the front, up there is a header. That's where you can also do, you know, LBK's buyer questionnaire, your initials obviously, or your name. I would decrease the font. So make a note up there, decrease font. The other part of this is also I'm being very particular in this class of trying to get you to save space so they're not getting 16 pages. So anywhere I can say go from 18-point font to like 9, do it, because then the whole page moves up. You can fit more questions. I hope that's making sense. Okay, so we are going to go to the getting started basic information. Actually, no, before we get to that, I want you to write down, there are a couple of bullets I want you to write down. Since you have those blank pages that I'm telling you to delete, use those as note taking right now. Here are the following things. I'm going to give you 5 bullets of things that need to make their way into your questionnaire. Okay, you ready? Great. The first bullet that needs to go somewhere in here is a link to your app. So what you're doing right now is you're writing link to my app, item number 1. Again, these are just notes you're taking. Second bullet, link to school districts. We will cover that later. And you know, I think there are 3, maybe 4. I think because one of them is broken into 2, but nonetheless, you've got Charleston, Dorchester, and Berkeley. So you need all links to all county school districts. I wouldn't get detailed on schools themselves. I would go to the district page, okay? Third bullet, you want to link to the Chamber of Commerce info. Number 4, a link to local maps. Those local maps are found in the Chamber of Commerce. So I spent time when I did this, I went to Charleston, you know, Chamber of Commerce. You could probably go to all of them, Somerville, whatever. Inside those links, what you're giving them are demographic information. You're giving them potential crime information. You're giving them links to, you know, police and other things. Things that you technically shouldn't answer any questions about. You know, some of it you legally can't, but I also want to stress that you are a real estate agent. You are not the Chamber of Commerce. So go to the resources that have already put this together and give people this information. One person's going to ask you about crime and one person's not. That other person who doesn't ask you about crime, they're going to ask you about schools. The beauty of this is you get to answer every one of those questions, not with an answer, but with, I've given you that information. You have links to all those things in your buyer questionnaire, which you sent to them. So you're already covering their bases. You don't want to get into the habit of answering questions about schools or crime or anything. Joseph, who is involved, he's our broker. There's some of it's illegal, some of it's a gray area. Just be smart and stay in your wheelhouse. And I'll give you a script on that in a minute. So the local maps, and then last one is testimonials. If you have testimonials, some of us may not at this point because we're new to the business. That's okay. You want to make a note that eventually your testimonials need to make it in there, but let's say what you decide to do instead is get the testimonials of our office. So you might want to make a note, testimonials of our office or Keller Williams or something. Don't be afraid to share our good company and or our good local offices and or your good work. Okay, so here's a script for when someone says, how do you, what's a good school, or what's a good, blah, blah, blah. So before I even get that question in my consultation, here's how I describe to them how the process is going to go. I say, okay, so how the real estate transaction works in South Carolina or with me is that there's a team of us who are going to get you to the closing table very successfully. Each one of us on that team have a very specific job instruction. My job as a real estate agent, I am going to be the expert on the contract, on the home, and making sure that we execute everything we agree to on the contract terms. The other parts of our team are our home inspector, our termite inspector, our lawyer, our loan guy, loan officer, and what I say is, I defer to every one of those experts when a question comes to me that is in their wheelhouse. I'm not going to pretend to be a loan officer, but what I say is I genuinely understand I know how everything works, but I'm not going to be the expert on it. I'm not going to speak for them. So if you have a question, sorry, things are going. So if you have a question about anything that I don't know the answer to, the good news is I have an amazing team and I will get that answer for you within 24 hours. And I actually do that. I follow up with the answer, or I send an email with a buyer copied with that loan officer, let's say, to ask the question and hand it off to the right person. So that's your general script when it comes to Chamber of Commerce information, school districts, etc. I often say, so I can say, I don't have kids, so I don't have my finger on the pulse of schools. But if you were to have kids, what you could say is, because every family's child has such a different set of needs, and we have an amazing set of school districts that have all different types of school. I learned a while ago not to try to be an expert on the school systems, but what I do know is what I do have is the resources to hand off to you so you can do that research for your family. So that's kind of my script to avoid that. And that's why those bullets being included in this is very important, because let's say you're riding around showing property and all of a sudden you get an email from someone and a buyer, and they say, email or text, and we'll talk about how you handle that. Where's the blah, blah, blah? If I am tied up all day and I know I'm not gonna be able to call them and talk to them directly, I will step away from my clients when they're walking around the house, let's say, and I will send them back an email. With clients, this is all on your buyer questionnaire if you can find it. But once I am through with my appointments, I will call you to make sure you found it. So you're able to point them back to the resource, stay communicative, which is a complaint from a lot of people, but then set proper expectations of I will be in touch, but once I'm through, versus you're not going to get this information immediately. Go find what I've already sent you. I'll call you later. People are really good with that. They're happy with that. They're good with that. Okay. So that right there, what I just went over are some things that we're going to have, you need to have somewhere in your questionnaire, totally up to you where. I'm going to pause a minute and talk really quickly about how to handle communication with your client. You're going to find out in a minute when we go through all these questions that one of my questions on this questionnaire asks them how they like to be communicated with and their hours, like preferred hours. Because you might have a nurse who sleeps from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I, as a experienced buyer's agent, feel very comfortable giving this advice.
Yes.
Whoever's not on mute, mute yourself. Gotcha. I muted you. You do not need to encourage them to text you. They're going to, but you need to get back in control, because here's my opinion on that. First, you should not do any communicating about any real estate transaction on text. But if you don't tell them that until 3 weeks into the relationship, they're going to expect you're going to text them back about real estate if you got comfortable texting them in the beginning. I don't text with agents. When they text me stuff, I then move it to email and say, per your text, you've asked me to do this. I'm now going to talk to my client. I'll be back in touch. Everything for me moves to an email. If my client says they prefer a text, what that does for me, when I get this questionnaire back from them, and a lot of times I do get it before I even talk to them, people love this questionnaire. Like, I'm telling you, it's going to change your business. They will fill it out and get it back to you before they call you back. I mean, it's awesome. If you see that, then you're learning that your client needs to be educated by you on how the process works when working with you. And you need to do it in a nice, pleasant, professional way. So here's my script when they say they want to be texted. I say, I notice here that you like to be texted more than anything, and say, okay, so I want to set proper expectations with you, Jane. And that is, I am not that good of a texter. And here's why. I work with a lot of buyers. So if you're going to do both sides of the business, you guys, you're still going to work with buyers. You can still use this excuse, so to speak, but I say I'm with buyers almost every day. What that means is I'm in the car, I'm driving, I'm talking to them. And when I'm with clients, I don't text other clients. I kind of keep my other books of business under wraps, so to speak, until I am not focused on that client, then I can address it. If you were to text me while I'm with a client and I'm driving using my GPS, there's a chance I'm going to dismiss it to get back to my GPS, and I'm going to totally forget about your text. And that makes me look like I'm not paying attention. I would love it if, when you think of texting me, you also email me. That way I have my email to-do list. When I get out of the car after a long day, I have something to then go read. I can mark as read or unread, and I don't forget about it. I also will say to them, you might even get a text response to me from me that says, please email me. So I am a huge stickler on, I do not teach them to text me. And I treat them like children when they do it anyway, but I'm nice. And I say, please email me. I'll be able to get back to you when I'm done with my clients. Whether or not they do is up to them, but I'm no longer making the mistake. Okay. So then I go back to, okay, so I don't text because I'm with clients, and I don't want to miss your text. And then I finish that up with, nothing that I do is going to, no real estate decision that you and I are going to make or that I'm going to make with an agent is ever done via text. So you can trust that how I'm handling things with you is also how I'm handling it with other people. I only manage things on email because if anything got disputed, I could print it out. It's a lot easier to track than a text. And I actually have had to go to court one time and brought the emails, and it was thrown out because the other agent didn't do his job. But because of my email records, the judge saw my records and said, you're right, this is not even, and it was gone. So be smart, be professional. The only thing I ever text is on my way, or I'm running late, or I'm here. So it's not that I say I don't text them. I absolutely do not text about work. So just, that's my advice. All right, let's go to page 3, getting started. You'll see that first set of lines. It's like name 1, phone, email, name 2, phone, email. Combine all of that and don't take up 6 lines. So you should have one line item that says, what are the names of the buyers? What are your preferred methods of contact, and hours? That should just be one line, okay? You don't need to take up that much space on the document. But all that information is good. You can just ask them one time, what's your name, email, and how do you want to be contacted? Moving on to question 2. The second bullet says, who is the primary contact, and what's it? We just covered that. X that question. So what that means is you're going to delete this off of this document because you're combining it and you've already answered it. Next bullet, what is prompting your move? I like that question. Mine specifically says, why are you moving to Charleston? I want to know a little bit more. I like the question more specific. Oh, you have to also remember, if they are locally to Charleston, you might say, why are you moving to Charleston? I think we cover the other in another spot. But you get my drift. All right. Third bullet, when do you need to be in your new home? That needs to be edited to when do you need to move into your new home? I learned to ask that question because I used to get spring of 2020 versus December 1 of 2020, right? If they give you an actual date, and when you say the words moving into your new home, they really get specific. So if they say, I need to be there by December 1 and you're in February, you have learned at that point that they are on the radar, but they're not immediate. And if your book of business gets to the point where you're having 3 and 4 buyer referrals sent to you a week, you have to start categorizing who gets your immediate attention. So when someone says spring, you don't really know if is that January or March, right? So you want to get an exact date for that, because part of your consultation is based on what you answered to me, Mr. Buyer. You need to be in the house by December 1. That means we need to be under contract by October 15th. So if it's August, we have a little bit of time. You see what I did? I backed out of that, explained to them that's it's a 45-day process, typically with a loan. So we don't really need to be under contract until October 15th. This is how you begin deciding how you're going to build the relationship with them if they're not immediately going into your car, because you have to do that or else they'll find someone else between now and October 15th. Okay. Hope that makes sense. Next bullet. Are you pre-approved for a mortgage? Good question. We're going to plus it. So get ready to write. The next part of that question, all in one line, again, keep it as concise as possible. Do you understand closing costs versus your down payment? Again, do you understand closing cost versus your down payment? Next question. And if you're hearing a snore, that's just my dog. Be prepared to choose a low mortgage versus closing cost assistance. That's not a question. That's more of a statement in line. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So what that question now says is, are you pre-approved for a mortgage? Do you understand your closing costs versus your down payment? Be prepared to choose a low mortgage versus closing cost assistance. Hopefully everybody got that down. What that does is that it prompts the conversation. This questionnaire is not supposed to explain anything. That's your job. This questionnaire is your way of tracking along the themes of discussion to know what it is you need to be educating them on. So if they send that back to you and they say, we're pre-approved for a mortgage, yes. Do you understand closing costs for down payment? No. Be prepared to choose. What does this mean? You understand now what you have to know to educate them. If you don't understand everything I just said because you're new in the business, some of y'all are, that's okay. It still needs to be in this questionnaire. If you don't know what I just told you to write down, then you have your job, and that is to go learn these terms before you work with any buyers, because in order to run a buyer business, you need to know the terms. Not a bad thing, just understand where you are in the process, but that statement needs to stay there. Okay, next bullet, what is your price range? That's a good question. I add on there, the question we just covered above might have covered it, but I still like to be thorough. So I say, what is your price range? ? Immediately next, what is your source for that? ? Because you need to find out if they're looking on, an online mortgage calculator versus an actual loan officer. Next question, do you know the monthly breakdown? So all that, what is your price range? What's your source for that? And do you know what your monthly breakdown is? Again, if they write back and they're like, no, I don't know what that means, then you now have uncovered how you need to educate them. And that if they are just doing like a mortgage calculator, your new script is, for peace of mind, would you mind just calling someone that I can talk to, because I want to make sure that here's my script for them. For instance, Mr. Buyer, if you're pre-approved for $400,000, but you don't want to spend more than $1,200 a month because you have some lofty retirement goals, then your $400,000 is not what we're looking at. We're looking at a lower price number. So you need to get clarity between what you can be approved for and what you want to spend each month. I had one of my first clients, one was like getting cash from his dad. So he was paying for it. He didn't have any credit, never had like done anything. You know, he was a lot of fun. And I said, but he and his wife were both servers. So they had a very strict budget, although they could have bought anything, right? So, and they were going to be in their dad was going to buy it when they were going to take out a mortgage. So I basically was like, you need to figure out your monthly breakdown before we go anywhere. So there's a method to that madness, if that makes sense. You might want to do this. I always, on this specific bullet right here where you did, what is your price range, source, monthly breakdown? I did a little asterisk. It's a hard word to say a few times. And I said, do not alter your credit in any way. Again, this questionnaire is going to help you track along what you need to tell them to do or not to do. I wrote at the bottom of the page, one thing I want y'all to know. So we talked about, you know, up here, you could have a branding of sorts. That's a header. Down here, I also said, if you don't like it on the header, you can also don't forget to do a footer and put your brand. Here's why that's important. You want your brand on every page, even if it's a small little thing, because let's say they forward it to someone saying, wow, what an amazing document. Look at them. Look at my real estate agent. Your information has now gone across the internet. Someone else might reach out to you just by seeing this questionnaire. So brand every page if possible. All right, next page. This is page 4 of 10. As you notice on the document, it's one sentence and then it's a huge gap of space. First thing, strike if we found a home today that meets all of your needs. Delete that, and here's why. You're consulting right now. Most of the time, you're not going to consult and then immediately walk out of the door to look at houses. Your consultation is to prepare for the next appointment, which is showing houses, hopefully. So in no way, shape, or form should you be asking that question at this point. So it doesn't mean it's not a good question. And there's a lot of language of sales that when you see that, there's an actual whole buyer program. For the purpose of today, you're just learning how to consult with the buyer to set a next appointment. That's a waste of space on the questionnaire. Here are 4 questions that I want y'all to add to this. Again, this can go anywhere. I'm just putting it here because there's space on the document. First question, if you have been searching online, what addresses have you saved? ? Please send those to me. What changed from when I first wrote this questionnaire to 5 years ago is buyers now come to me with all their addresses. I'm not doing as much as they are. But as we all know, your value starts when the contract is written, not opening doors. So don't let them tell you your value is only opening doors. But nonetheless, go ahead and ask them, what have you seen? Send those addresses to me. Second bullet, second question or whatever. Do you have a current home to sell? ? Is it on the market yet? If you can get 2 transactions out of this, good on you. If they live in another state and you can't help them sell, then your script is, I have an amazing Keller Williams agent up in that area I'd love to put you in touch with. So then you might get a referral fee on their sale. Hold on, my phone keeps buzzing. I will make sure it's not Joseph telling me something. Okay, it's not. All right, other contingencies to discuss is the 3rd bullet. Like, do you have any other contingencies besides a current home to sell, etc.? There may be a rental thing, right? Like a lease. Then my 4th one is, if you're renting, when is your lease up? Or lease is up when, or whatever. So you're identifying everything. This to me is the crux of the questionnaire, although there's more to it. To me, this is the core of the apple, which you're finding out what type of buyer you're dealing with, how far along they are, what they know about buying, and how educated you need to make them before you put them in your car. Does all that make sense? All right, wait a minute. I'm seeing Maraid. I hope I'm saying your name right. Please repeat 3rd question. That would be, are there other contingencies to discuss? All right, and then Deb wrote, what was the last question about price range, source, monthly breakdown? That was on the former page. All right, let me go over that again. And then I'll go back to Maraid. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. It's probably a lot prettier than how I'm saying it. What was the last question about price range? Okay, so the questions that you need to have on that group of questions is, what is your price range, question mark? What is the source of that, question mark? And you're thinking, is it an online thing? Are they talking to someone? And do you know your monthly breakdown? That's a big set of questions, but it's important. They need to know, I can afford 400,000, but I only want to pay 1,200 a month. If they don't know the breakdown of $400,000 house, let's say that's an $1,800 mortgage and they only want to pay 12, we're not buying a $400,000 house. That's what I'm trying to get to. And then I made an asterisk underneath that says, do not alter your credit in any way. And as y'all might know, if they even go so much and buy furniture the day before the closing, that closing will not happen. Or sorry, if they put it on credit, like if they open a new credit at Rooms to Go. I actually had a client who wanted to buy a car, and I said, no, don't buy a car. Even though he had plenty of money and could do it, it would change everything. So make sure you have that asterisk so they can say, I don't know what that means. You need to tell them. All right. She's asking, what is question 3? If you want to unmute yourself and ask me out loud, if you don't mind.
It was on page 3. And you told us to write down like 3 different things. And this was the first one about, I didn't know if you said be prepared to choose a loan mortgage versus closing cost assistance. Did I get that right?
Yes, it's basically a statement that's be prepared. It's underneath the, are you pre-approved for a mortgage, question mark? Do you understand closing costs versus down payment? And then be prepared to choose a low mortgage versus closing cost assistance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. How do you say your name?
Oh, it's Mairead. You got it correct.
Okay, I'm saying it right. I didn't know if there was like a curl bar or something. So I got it right. I'm impressed with myself.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
So the point of that, y'all, is, as you know, so here's my script for that. This all comes out in the consultation at some point. The script is, so as a buyer's agent for you, Mr. Buyer, my win-win, my ideal situation is that you have a very low contract price and you have your closing costs covered. That to me would be ideal. But unfortunately, that's probably not a win-win for the seller. You're probably going to have to figure out one of those is going to be a compromise because the seller probably won't be at that position to do both. So what you and your family, depending on who they're buying with, whatever, what you and your family might need to start uncovering is, okay, are we cash heavy right here at the outset? So we don't need closing cost assistance. So we want to go in low on the mortgage. Or are we cash kind of poor when we get to the closing table and we want to redo our kitchen, so we need closing cost assistance? So you help them identify which one they might choose. But then I always follow that up with, we won't really know till we found the home and we're actually negotiating. So nonetheless, just be thinking. So my goal is just to constantly just drop seeds in their head about what they're supposed to be doing.
Can you just repeat that?
Repeat what? Are you frozen?
Oh, be prepared to choose a low loan or
low mortgage, LOW.
Low mortgage. Okay.
Like, be prepared to choose. I'll say it a different way. Be prepared to choose a lower sales price versus closing cost assistance.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying is that when we go to negotiate with the seller, Mr. Buyer, they're probably not going to give you 10,000 off and cover 15,000 of your closing costs. We might have to pick one. Do you see everybody tracking along now? Understand what I'm getting at? Okay, good. Keep asking questions because now I've cut that on. I can kind of look, and then I'll tell you to unmute yourself if I don't understand you. All right, that was page 4. Now we're done with that. The last one on that was if renting, when is your lease up, right? So let's turn the page to page 5. I want you to make a note on these following next few pages. I want you to pay attention to the spacing. There are a lot, like you don't like, you want to bring it in. And I'm actually we're going to delete a lot of these questions, and I'll explain why as we go through the deletion process. Okay. So again, we're on top of page 5. Notice the word your needs is in really big font, and then lifestyle is underneath it in really small font. That to me was just clutter. I basically did who, what, when, where, why. Those are my subheadings, and I don't have another subheading. And my who, what, when, where, and why are not 15 font or whatever, they're small. My buyer questionnaire, I think, is 4 pages. So I've put all this information in the right, I've spaced it well. Keep in mind that you're going to send this to them. This specific one, your buyer questionnaire, is going to be an editable document that they can type in. And here's why. When I would send people a PDF back in the day when you couldn't write in a PDF, I'd get back an email with paragraphs. I did not get the answers to every question. So I went back to the drawing board. I typed it in a Word document, and still to this day, everyone gets a Word document from me so they can type in it. And sometimes really good buyers do all their font in red, so I know exactly where they are and where mine are. So I wanted this to be not overwhelming, and I also didn't need to leave a ton of space for their answers. As they type in it, it's going to move it, right? So just put those questions one after the other. Don't waste a lot of time on the formatting. Make it as concise as possible. That's my advice on the your needs, lifestyle, heading, clutter, all of that. Okay, first bullet says who will be living in the home. Delete that. That's not important. Second bullet says, will anyone, and you can just put, just exit and no to go back later and delete it, because I'm going to go faster here. Will anyone else be spending more than blah, blah? I changed that to any overnight guest to consider. And while you're writing that down, I'll tell you why. They're moving to the beach. If they lived on a farm in Minnesota, they might not ever have anyone come visit them. The minute they move to the beach, they're going to have people come visit them. And I learned that. So when people would say to me, I just need 2 bedrooms and an office, I then realized that all those bedrooms are taken up by their family. They might need my help. You know what? Maybe my office needs to be a bedroom that I can also have people stay. Okay. So that's important. That's a Charleston feature that you need to think about for them. Third bullet, describe your lifestyle. Delete that. It's not important. Do you have a need for an office in the home? Delete that. I'll explain more. Next one, does your home need to accommodate? Delete that. Next bullet of do you have any pets? That question changes to, do you need a fence or can it be put in post-closing? Again, I learned when I said, do you need a fence? The answer was always yes. And then I realized I cannot search only for houses with fences. So I had to get smarter about the question. And now everyone says, I can get a fence later. So it opens back up their search. Next bullet, do you have anything special that needs to be accommodated? Delete. That's not important. When people come to your home, delete. Is there anything I should know about your lifestyle? Delete. Here's why. Here's what I've learned. Take me for my word. You don't have to ask these questions for them to tell it to you. The minute you open 1 or 2 questions about some things, you're going to get answers and you're going to get what you need to know. They're going to tell you about that office. Don't waste space on this document to ask that question. They're going to tell you. So I hope that makes sense. Next heading is location. Again, you get to decide how you categorize your questions. I personally broke them up because when I go and read things, I like them to be kind of in chunks. I'm less overwhelmed. That's so you do whatever you want. If you want to get fun with the who, what, where, when, why, go for it. But now we're in that whole location discussion. To tell me about your ideal location, that question became, are you familiar with Charleston? And do you have a preferred area? You're going to have people who you know live here. That's okay. This is a general buyer questionnaire. They're going to probably say, yep, I want to stay in West Ashley. So that question does not make you seem like you don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Next bullet. What is your maximum commute time and distance? Add these words: from work, ? And then, or from beach, airport, etc. It's too open-ended. They need to give them a parameter. If they're retiring here, they don't have work, so that won't matter, but they might really like to fly places. They might really like to go to the beach. What that also does is if someone says, I don't want to be any further than 30 minutes from the beach, then they have a lot of options, right? Because everything, unless you're a certain spot, a couple of places are about 30 minutes from a lot of our beaches. You get to educate them on that. Next one, what is your work address? Delete that. You don't need to know that. You've just asked from work. They know their address or their general area. You don't need to know that information. Next bullet says, are schools important? That question turns into, if schools are important, here are links to the districts. So now, earlier in the day, I said, you're going to have these three get inserted somewhere. This is where they're inserted if you want them to go here. Next bullet, if everybody's good, is there a particular view? Delete it. They will tell you. You don't need to waste space for a question on this document. Next thing, what else is important about your location? They're going to tell you. And let me make a disclaimer. If you like these questions and you decide to keep them, it does not make you a bad buyer's agent. I'm saying that my preference and what I've learned is they're going to fill it out when there are fewer questions. You're going to get a more thorough answer back when they don't have 32 questions on one page. Just my experience. So what I've done is I'm telling you what I don't think is important to waste space on. But if you want to make a note for yourself, maybe you have a master questionnaire that sits with you on your desk, write notes down of here's where you ask about a skyline. Here's where you ask about this. I'm just saying to have this work for you like it should be more concise than the current one. Flip to page 6. Again, your dream home in general, do the same thing you might have done on the page before. Either keep it, love the font, keep it big, or make it small and save space. Bullet number 1, do you have a preference for when the house was built? That becomes these set of questions. Is this your primary or secondary home? Question mark. And then after that, you're going to put the numerals 4% or 6% question mark. I'll explain all this. Now, I'm a big fan of grouping up questions that make sense to stay together. So that's what I did. So it was basically primary, secondary, 4 to 6%. Do you prefer new construction or are you good with a resale? And single family detached or single family attached, question mark. Detached or attached. So back to so primary, secondary, as y'all know, or are going to learn as a new agent in South Carolina, that drastically changes your taxes from 4% to 6%. You need to know that one or the other so that you know how to educate them on those taxes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then write that down. I need to learn this as a buyer's agent. For when the house was built, you don't want to hear, I'd like a house built in 2001. That's way too particular. What you want to hear is, I only want a new construction or only 5 years old, or I'm good with a fixer upper, right? So the new construction or resale prompts that conversation. And then obviously detached, attached, there's really no clarity there. Next bullet, delete, do you want to move in condition? You're covering all of that with those first clumps of questions. So you can delete, do you want a house move in condition or work? Next grouping under structure exterior, again, I don't have that heading. I deleted structure exterior and I also deleted the next 2 questions. We just covered all that. I do not ask them what architectural styles are that they would prefer because that's brain damage. They're just going to have to pick from what's out there. Charleston is going to have a range. And what I learned with this buyer questionnaire, and this is why I'm doing this with y'all, is when you give them these specific questions, they're going to say to you, I want a Charleston single, but they may only have like $150,000 budget. They're probably not getting a Charleston single. So what you want to do is make sure you're not setting them up to say, this is my wish list. And then you have to say, I can't bring you any of those. Only certain types of buyers are going to say, this is the exact kind of home that I want. And we'll cover that script in a minute. All right, next question says approximately what size house are you looking for, right? That question becomes, do you have a minimum or maximum square foot requirement? The reasoning behind that is same thing that we'll cover in a minute when they talk about lot size. If you've got a couple who are trying to downsize, you need to know what they currently live in so that you cap the search. So let's say they're at 3,500 and they're tired of cleaning that all the time. Then you say, all right, so why don't we start at 3,000? Why don't we cap you at 3,000? And they may even say, no, let's go to 2,800. So there you may have had a broad search that just got in a little bit more narrow. Same rule applies. You have a couple first-time home buyer. They've been renting in a condo and they need more space, and they say we just want something bigger, and you say what are you living in right now, and they say 1,500, and then you say, are you about to kill each other, or is that you want to do that again? And they're like, no, 1,800. So when you unpack those questions, you get a much more suited to them footprint. It's not, don't be a robot. Don't just ask questions and say, okay, I got that answered. Think through how to help them. All right, next bullet. How many stories? Delete. What size lot would you like? Delete. What type of exterior siding? Delete. All that's going to come up if it's important to them, I promise you. And then, do you want a porch or a deck? I basically just say, would you prefer a screen porch? In this area, as y'all have learned, if you're familiar or getting familiar, you can pretty much buy a screen porch anywhere. It's almost as important as a bathroom in South Carolina because you can't sit outside and not get eaten up. So what I say to them is, if you probably, let's look for a screen porch, because I don't know if you know it, but the South Carolina state bird is a mosquito. And so what we want you to do is be able to sit outside when you're enjoying your home and have a screen between you and their teeth, So I make them laugh. I'm funny, that kind of thing. So you can make this questionnaire and consultation a lot of fun, but I add the screen part of it because I want them to have a screen porch. Okay, the next one, what are you looking for in terms of a garage? I specifically changed that to, do you want a garage attached or detached? And is there a minimum number of bays or stalls or whatever? They'll answer one way or the other if that's even important to them, but you've at least asked so specifically that if it ends up being important, you don't just get a yes, I want a garage. You get now a number of bays or whatever, or attached or detached, because that's how you can search in the MLS. Delete the swimming pool or hot tub. They will tell you. Are you looking for any structures? Delete. That other feature is important. That question turns into, are amenities important to you? Here's why. We now have a whole group of neighborhoods that have been built that don't have amenities and they're not coming. You need to help them discover, is that important to them? Because that will actually weed out a quarter of the neighborhoods in Charleston. And then they might also say, I don't know what you mean. What should that be important? What do you think? That's where you get to say, okay, we now have a bunch of neighborhoods without amenities. In the terms of resale, if you have a comfortable price point that include amenities, you might want to consider having them, even though it doesn't matter to you, because then you're opening the door to a group who might really need amenities down the road. So you're also helping them talk through the resale idea, but at the very least, you need to know if that's a deal breaker for them. That's becoming an important deal breaker. Okay, page 7. Your dream home, in parentheses, continued, all of that. To me, unless you have perfected the formatting of this document, I wouldn't have anything with the word continued, because you don't really know where that's going to fall when they open up the document. Again, this is my OCD kicking in. Y'all just get on board or not. But I don't like any of that stuff cluttering up the meat of the document, which is just getting information from them. They will know that the document's continuing. Save space. All right. Let me tell you what stays on this page. Almost everything gets deleted. Let me tell you what stays. Jump down to the 4th bullet. How many bedrooms do you need? Circle that. That stays. How many bathrooms do you need? Circle that. That stays. That's 3 down from the bedrooms. all of these questions, I laugh about it in every class. I don't want to know how they're going to use how you're going to use your bathroom. So you know what? I just want to know how many you need, not what you're doing in there. So some of these questions to me are not important for you as a buyer's agent. The third thing I want you to add to this group is this question, because you're going to see some questions of what they're asking for or whatever. I figured out how to ask one question and get all this answered. What do you currently love and want to duplicate in your current home? What do you currently hate and do not want to repeat in your home? And I don't know, I probably don't use the word hate just because I'm still like a 6-year-old where we were told not to use the word hate. So what do you not want to repeat? What is your least favorite feature? So in a lot of language of sales and the buyer program and all that I have sat in and listened and taken some from and then also dismissed some, they talk about you want to build this dream home concept with them and make them feel like they're, this is where you're building rapport and you're being associated with their dream home research. I personally heard that and thought there's a danger in that if you're in a seller's market, because the inventory is so low, I don't like to set improper expectations. So I don't use words like dream home, and I don't go too lofty. I say, here's my script as explaining myself to them. I say, my prior career was commercial real estate. I'm very business oriented. I am going to guide you and advise you in your business decision. And there's a lot of emotion that comes into this. There's a lot of what we really want, but then what's really out there. I'm okay if you get emotional. I can promise you I'm not going to. I'm going to keep bringing us back to center. That's the point of this consultation, Mr. Buyer. That's the point of this questionnaire. This is our new Bible that every time we look at a home, we're going to make sure it all matches this. And if we walk into a home and everything changes, that's okay too. That's part of the process. But I will at least get your permission to change anything and everything that we put down on paper, and then we can change the search. So back to what I was saying is you are building rapport with them by discussing homes and asking what they want and don't want. But I think you need to be careful with too much, because then they think they're going to get, a hardy plank with double porches right there in the old village for $215. So you've got to let them unpack the house before you really advise them. You know what I'm saying? And you can build rapport and make them laugh, make them feel happy about things without the dream home discussion. I hope it doesn't sound too cynical, because a lot of my buyers like me, so I'm not like super hardcore, but I've learned also how to couch this in a way that is helpful and valuable to them. All right, page 8, next one. Again, notice the your dream home continued, all of that. Work on that, in my opinion. Everything under the living room, dining room, or family room, strike all those. What's going to happen is you're going to ask the 4 or 5 questions that I've just given you. You're going to ask these questions, and they're going to give you 17 different features because you've made them start thinking. That's the goal, to make them start thinking. So you're going to get the answers of the office and all of that. You don't need specific questions for all of it. Another script that's important to remember is if they write things, and they do, like, I want all hardwoods, or I want a kitchen island, or I want an open floor space, open floor plan. Here's the script for that. So, Mr. Buyer, I noticed in your questionnaire that you really want a kitchen island, or you want all hardwoods, or you really want an open floor plan. In the way it works in the MLS is there are certain fields that a listing agent is going to fill out. And we're going to search those listings, and we're going to use those fields to find what we're looking for. I don't want to get too specific yet by putting in needs a kitchen island or must have open floor plan, for a couple of reasons, Mr. Buyer. One, there's not a field for some of this, so there's really no way to search for it. There's no field for open floor plan. I know that. Second part of that is I'm relying on the listing agent to have been so thorough and so detailed that they filled out the words kitchen island in the field. So if I put in, we have to have a kitchen island, and the listing agent didn't put, there is one in this house, we've just nixed a house that could work for you because someone might not be very thorough in their MLS input. There is a two-pronged thing here, students. You're starting to explain to them how you're not going to bring them everything they ask for, but it's not necessarily because you're the bad guy. My job became so much easier when I figured out how to take a situation that I needed to tweak to make my life easier and turn it into a script that made them think I was looking out for them. So the whole texting thing, it's like, I don't want to receive text from my buyers. What they hear is, I might forget to get back to you, and that makes me a bad agent. I have completely changed my script to make it about them. It's about me, no doubt about it. So I want you to be thinking about that as you're working through your buyer agent business protocols. Think of that. So back to the kitchen island, the hardwoods open floor plan. I say things like, there's no field to search on some of these. And secondly, what I've learned is that if I put in kitchen island and they didn't enter it, I might miss out on one. So we're going to really rely on the pictures here in the beginning until we get a little bit further down the road and have walked through one or two. Because it is always going to happen that the client says, I have to have an open floor plan. And then you have a script that helps them keep an open mind. And they say, okay, I'm willing to see something that isn't just one big room. They walk in the one with all the walls, and that's the one they want. I have learned that what they say in the beginning isn't exactly what they land on, but that's not their fault. And that doesn't make them annoying. That just makes them a human figuring out what they want, and you got to get them there. Many people have heard me say, and I'll say it every time, I cannot stand the buyers or liars thing. I think that's inaccurate. I always go back and say, let me talk to the agent who says that. I can guarantee you she does not, or he does not have a thorough buyer consultation. So a buyer doesn't know. I bought a house for the first time 4 years ago with Joseph, obviously. I didn't know what I wanted because I've spent my life having everyone else tell me what they want. I had to walk through one or two and then say, okay, I'm getting it now. I already had sympathy or compassion for them. That just drilled it home. Until you touch, taste, and feel, you don't really know. So try to grow your grace for your buyers and understand if you're not doing your job very thoroughly, you're going to have a lot of confused buyers. But at the end of the year, if you have 2 difficult buyers and 12 great ones, you're doing your job. If you have 10 confusing buyers and 2 great ones, you're not doing your job. That to me is the litmus test. All right, so we struck the dining room, living room next to the summary, right? Now it's summary. That to me turned into the words 5 must-haves. And those 5 must-haves underneath that was my heading. I asked the one question that you see, what are the top 5 things your home must have? I struck all those last 3 ones. And I actually may have described them as deal breakers. You can use the language however you prefer, but one of the things I also did is, so let's say I had, what are your 5 must-haves? I then maybe did like 3 words like fireplace, pool, large lot, garage, screen porch. I threw out some words just to help them. If you wanted to do that, just in case, but because sometimes, anyway, what I've learned is that they will write me those 5 must-haves after they've written everything else. They still come back to those 5 must-haves and they're okay with it. So make sure you include that. Oh, hold on. Let me see if there's a note. Nope. Next page starts with your dream neighborhood. Strike everything. We've already covered all of that. All right. And then for me, the next thing is, this is what wraps up this buyer questionnaire. This is all new information, so get ready to write. Basically, the heading for me is called Our Relationship. The first question is, have you worked with an agent before? I'm gonna drink some water. The second question is, have you bought in South Carolina before. You might say bought or sold in South Carolina before. If you did work with an agent, what were their names and how terrible were they? No, I'm kidding. If you did work with an agent, what did you like or dislike about that process? It's not about the agent. You want to find out what might have been an issue for them in the past. Because again, I've been handed a few buyers who've come from pretty bad situations and they're just really unhappy with their agent at the time. And I did, you do those steps properly. I wanted to find out what caused that problem and I wanted to redeem it. That became my new goal, was not to get them in a house, but to make their experience better. So my question, that question is important to me. What do you like or didn't like? And you're going to hear things like, took us to houses that were out of our price range, didn't communicate enough, whatever. You want to read that and then you want to talk a little bit about that with them. Okay. Next bullet question is, what is the most important thing about our relationship I should know right now? What that often gets is, be honest with me, be direct. We don't know what we're doing and we need you to advise us. I mean, you're going to get a lot of good answers and you're getting this is building the rapport, I think, versus the dream home. And then the last question is, what have I not asked that I should have? So there are 5 questions underneath the Our Relationship heading. And I go over this. This is the wrap up. After we've talked about their house, we've talked about where they want to be and when they want to be and what they know about their financing. I then say, okay, I see here if they've answered it. I see here that you didn't have a great experience. You felt like it was this, excuse me, y'all. And, you wish it were this. And so then I'll say, all right, so that's going to be very important to me. That's a hot button for me. My goal is, what I'll do is say, first, I'm sorry. There are some difficult and stressful agents in this industry. It's kind of a low bar. And so that sometimes happens, but I don't think real estate has to be that stressful. And so that's why I ask these questions. I want to make sure that whatever you experienced, I redeem, I do better, and that you have a better experience moving forward. And so that's how I build rapport. I like to go deep. I'm not a how's the weather kind of girl. So most of the time, if they didn't have a great experience, they're going to talk to you about it and you're going to really bond, for lack of a better word. And then so a couple of pieces of advice. I also, throughout my whole real estate time with them, I will stop and say, okay, let's do a feelings check. How are we feeling? Where are we stressed? Are we excited? What's going on? So I'm like put my therapist hat on. And, I always laugh and say my dream job, actually, before I transferred my license from commercial to residential, is I was going to go back to the Citadel, get a marriage or family counseling license. That was my dream job. But I just got married to Joseph and I needed to get some money and I had a real estate license. Well, after a year, I was like, I'm doing all of the above and I didn't even have to go to school. So real estate is actually pinging those passions of mine because I sincerely love helping couples talk through the purchase process, and I give the other the voice. Like I've had some wives and husbands who I can tell are just saying what the other one wants to hear. So I become the uncomfortable middle ground and I say, why do I feel like you're not telling me exactly what you want? Like I want to hear exactly, and I know that your wife does too. We'll figure this out together. So I bring a lot of that to the table because that is my heart and that's my passion. Don't be afraid to do that, is my point. But no matter what, you're going to stay a professional, you're going to stay logical, and you're going to stay their guide and their overseer. And that's your main goal, and put your heart in it. Have humanity about it. All right, page 10, the what's ahead. Here's what I want y'all to do on this one. I'm going to do it and then hold it up. See the little squiggle I did? So remember I told y'all about my canned emails? I liked this verbiage so much that it's part of my canned email. That's the post consultation, but I removed it from the questionnaire. I didn't want it part of that document because again, it was just a lot of overwhelming words. I wanted the questionnaire to be very concise. So this is good verbiage, you can do whatever you want. I removed it and I put it in my post-consultation email, which if you do your homework, you'll get all these emails from me. Is that the last one, 10 of 10? Yes. We're done with the questionnaire. It's right at 3:30. The guide takes like 5 minutes because it's really good. If everybody can still hang tight with me, we're going to move to the buyer guide, and then I will be done to take questions. I have nothing else on my plate. I can stay here with you as long as you need me to. This is your guide. Let me explain to you the difference. The questionnaire to me is all about the buyer and you. You're the agent. And you'll see where I've moved some of that guide stuff over to the questionnaire. We're going to do that. The guide itself is a generic, this is what it's like to buy a house in South Carolina. It's something I can send to anyone and everyone, whether or not I have had a relationship with them. In my mind, I wanted a personal document that was very tailored to that person and sold me. And then I wanted a generic, this is your go-to if you have a question and I'm not available. Here's where you go see where are we right now. So on the first very page, again, don't forget to brand yourself. I see that you're writing, Patricia. Keep writing while I go through it. Second page, it's all about you. This gets moved to your buyer questionnaire. So you're cutting and pasting everything over to your questionnaire. It's just removed. Let me see. It's just removed from the guide, and you can put it anywhere you want to in that questionnaire. But I like the verbiage. I want it to go in the document that's about you and the buyer. Page 3 of 15. This gets moved as well to the questionnaire. Same notes. But here's my heading of this page. It says you get from me. Again, I changed the font and everything. At the top, I actually have in a heading underlined that says, what does it cost me to hire a buyer's agent? No, what does it cost me to hire Lynn as my buyer's agent? And in the first line, it says, at no cost, here's what I do for you. And I'll list all those things that you see. Again, the questionnaire is about me and the buyer. I'm selling myself. All right, Patricia, well, thank you for attending. If you need me for any reason after this, email me. We'll do a one-on-one. Glad you're here. Next section is 6 steps to home buying. I like all of it. None of that gets struck on page 4, except I did edit the font and the spacing. Our colors are green and white and black. So you see Keller Williams is like red and black. If you have colors you prefer to do differently, have fun with it. I think I changed where it was red on what you see. Everything that's red is green for me, but it's a dark green, like not where it's not like, you can't see it. Next page, page 5 of 15, same thing. I got rid of all the continued pages and I decreased the font. All that is like half the page now for me. Page 6, funding your home purchase. Here's where we're gonna make a few edits. Again, fix the spacing. I think my buyer guide is only like 9 pages versus 15. So shorten it if you can. The only thing you're going to change on this page is number 1, qualification for the mortgage. That whole paragraph gets struck. It says lenders may require that your monthly payments range between blah, blah, blah. Strike that whole paragraph. And here's what you put in its place. Again, back to I have a team. Lenders are going to ask you about your income, your taxes, and your debt assets. I'm already letting them know the lender is going to ask them the questions and give them the answers of what they have to put down. However, I did keep those 4 bullets: principal, interest, property, and homeowners. I mean, that's true. That stays standard. But I strike the paragraph, and directly under the mortgage, I just say the lender is going to ask you about your income, your taxes, and your debt and assets. Go to page 7. Everything looks good here, except for number 4. South Carolina is an attorney state. So mine says title company / attorney. I add the word attorney. And then in parentheses, I put South Carolina is an attorney state. Everything stays the same. Like North Carolina isn't. So they could be coming from North Carolina and not even know they have to hire an attorney. They may say, I can't stand an attorney, but they don't understand they have to have one. So that's where you start that education. Page 8, scroll all the way down to the bottom. It says this check is made to the title company. That word just gets changed to attorney. Because now Keller Williams doesn't even accept earnest money. So that turns into the word attorney. All right, next page, closing 101. Up near the top, the very first bullet says, prepare for it. And then underneath it, it says a certified check. You want to add /wiring. Because now, you wire things. So you want the word wiring in there. A certified check /wiring for closing costs and down payment. I strike that second sentence, make the check payable to yourself. No, delete that whole thing. That's not really accurate anymore. Second bullet about insurance binder and all that, just delete that. You're going to keep photo IDs. You're going to delete social security and addresses. At the end of the day, the attorney is going to walk them through what they need. Don't put anything in writing that you're not 100% sure is going to get asked or not get asked, especially social security. Just take that out. Let the attorney handle it. Back to who are the other experts? The attorney. Next group of words, go to the very bottom. It says at the end of the closing, the deed will be taken and recorded, blah, blah, blah. What you want that to say is strike at the end of the closing and just keep the deed will be taken and recorded at the county clerk's office. This is part of the attorney's job. Strike, it will be sent to you after processing. Everybody does it a little bit differently now. Everything's so different now with COVID. Just say, all that needs to say is the deed will be taken and recorded at the county clerk's office, period. This is part of the attorney's job, period. And there you are, handing it off. I went through this. I loved this document. I didn't like too much explanation from me to them about attorney stuff. All right, frequently asked questions. You can add anything you want in there that you come across in your business. For instance, I now have a question about explaining earnest money. I also now have a question about, and then a simple description of repair procedure versus due diligence. I know how to write that out quickly and briefly because I'm familiar with it. If you're not, don't do it on your own. Get with your broker and say, what could I put in here? But most importantly, if you don't know the difference, you better not be selling real estate. You need to just know that. You just need to know that so you can tell them what it is. Okay, page 11. If you decide to keep the about me, it gives you a prompt. All those things are prompts that you can fill out, right? Give your expertise, give your technology. If you decide to keep this page, I would advise you move it to your questionnaire because again, your questionnaire is about you and the buyer. I don't think I would keep it in my buyer's guide because the buyer's guide is supposed to only focus on where am I in the process. Page 12, the above and beyond, again, keep it if you want. It prompts you what you should be doing. I see how it says list of your approved vendors. See, I already have my vendor list. I have a completely different document. So I don't have this page in there, but you decide what you want to do. Page 13, Keller Williams. There are a lot of stats and all that information. If you decide to keep it, that's great. If you want to insert stats and you don't have any of your own personal, get the Keller Williams, the office you're in, get their office stats. Put it in there. All right, page 14 of 15, which is technically our last page. This also, the what's ahead, this also got moved to my post-consultation email. I liked it, but I didn't want it in this document. I liked what it said and thought this is a great launching pad for how I do now that we've consulted what's next, and I have an email ready to go. And then I delete notes page because we're not in a world anymore where we really take physical notes anymore. So I just didn't waste the space. I don't have a blank page in my document. You can do whatever you want. That's it. That is the guide. So that was a lot faster because it's not so tailored to who you're going to be as a buyer's agent. It's more about the process. So I am through teaching. I don't know if I covered it all. If anybody wants to ask me questions, I can. If you want to unmute yourself, I'd really like, let's share some ahas. I don't even know how many people are here. How many people are in this thing? I'd love to hear, I have an ego and I want to hear how amazing I am. So why don't we unmute ourselves? And I want everybody to say, hey.
Hey.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey.
Hi. I hate teaching without being able to interact. So that's why I kind of want to hear your voices. So did I bomb or was this helpful?
I appreciated the kind of the permission to make this my own.
Okay. I think that's important.
So this is great. This is great information and really helpful because it really helps the buyer go through step by step, and it looks like the agent knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that was huge to me, is that I realized I wanted them to know who was in charge, and it's like you physically see their shoulders drop, and that was important to me because this is my career, this is my passion. So I'm glad that y'all feel that way, because that means I was successful today.
Good.
All right, anything else?
I think I need.
One thing is we're not flying by the seat of our pants, you know, and a lot of times, especially being out here in the Isle of Palms office, you have walk-ins. So you haven't had a chance to do any of this. So to have something like this prepared that I could even give to them before they leave, it's something versus just feeling like you're flying by the seat of your pants. You can be in control, and it's so much better, especially for first-time buyers.
Oh yeah. You know, I didn't think about that. You're 1,000% right about the Isle of Palms, like that experience where people just walk in, you know. So I don't know how much these things cost. They're probably not much, but like, I literally have but like we bought folders with our logos on them, and on the back is, you know, our names and our numbers and everything. I want you to do red light, green light, so I don't want you to spend too much money, but at the end of the day, having something like this that you can just hand off to them, you've done everything you can, in my opinion, to secure a potential walk-in and create value before they walk out of the door. Even if you never hear from them again, you know you've done your best. You're not having to rely on these amazing scripts. You actually hand them something. Same with an email. When I talk to people that I'll never see again, I'll say, can I get, you know, I have resources I send to my buyers. It's like a vendor list. It's a local map. And they're like, yeah, that would be great. I said, I just will send it to you. You can use it for whenever you're ready. But I already know at that point, I'm setting myself apart, and they have my contact info, and I'm getting theirs. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't even think about that, but that makes me happy for you, Jackie, that you might have something now to just hand off, and it's something.
It really is. And I mean, sometimes they don't have a whole lot of time either. You know, they're on vacation. They saw the sign. They're just popping in. And truly, when they can walk out of here with that information and my contact information, even if I never see them again, what if they pass it along to somebody else?
Exactly. You're exactly right. And I have had that happen where I'll send it to my cousin. Like, my cousin was buying in North Carolina. I sent him the buyer questionnaire. So because unfortunately, I knew his agent didn't have one. But not everybody does. That's what I'm saying. Some of the top agents don't use stuff like this, but I sent it to him so he could help convey what he needed to this agent. And then he ended up forwarding it to another friend of his who was moving to Charleston. So it's like, you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah, I just got started a few days ago, and I had a friend who referred me to a buyer. So this is a great class and a great jumping off point for me. Some stuff that I just got my Keller Williams login today.
Oh, good. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
I think that if you tell yourself, if I will spend just 2 hours on this, and I know it can drastically change my buyer business, it is so worth it. Let me tell you all the homework, and I will, hopefully this is recorded. Here's the homework for those of us who are left. your homework is go make these edits on this document, however you want to do it. Send it to me. I will review it. And once I see that you have a buyer questionnaire and a buyer guide, and I promise you, I'm going to correct your spelling. I'm going to say your spacing is still off. I'm going to do everything I can to make it look as pretty as I would want it to look. So you'll get my full attention. And once I see that you have these tools to give to a buyer, I'm going to send you all of my canned emails. You now have my system, but I'm not going to send it to you if I don't know that you're starting out properly, because you have to have these tools in place. You have to teach the buyer, learn the scripts, consult them in a way that when they start getting these canned emails saying, hey, we just consulted and you've done this, that, and the other, I know you're doing it properly from the beginning. So I'm not trying to be stingy as much as just a really sharp teacher to make sure that you're only going to get the easy system once you've done the hard work to get you to be the best buyer's agent.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thanks. It's a lot of great stuff for me.
Good. That makes me happy. My ego is so good. Need clarity about all the rooms. Delete all. Mairead asked us a question. Need clarity about all the rooms. What do you mean?
Oops. You went through, you started to go through these rooms, kitchen, living room, asking people what they wanted. And then I kind of got lost. Were we supposed to delete all of them and just replace it with a summary or something? Do you not ask?
Yes. So Mairead, let's do this. Send me an email. You have my email.
Yeah.
Send me an email with your phone number. I'll call you and make sure I go back to that page and make sure you have exactly how you should have it.
Okay.
Right now, because everybody, I appreciate everyone's time. You and I'll make sure you got what you need, and I'll just keep wrapping up with ahas, and then we can wrap up. All right. Anyone else want to add anything, ask any questions that we can handle right now?
I came in late, but I did appreciate what I heard thus far because I'm also a new agent. When you're going over the buyer's guide and everything, where do I find that information? Is it on command?
What information?
The guides that you have. So the questionnaire and the guides that you're like scratch off page this, page that.
Oh, I will email them to you. So.
Oh, okay.
So if you're new, then you might not have. So I've been sending emails to both offices saying, hey, if you're coming to the class, let me know. I'm going to send you what you need to work off of them. So right now, send me an email. I'm lynn@saltmarshproperties.com. Oh, let me type it in here. That'll probably be a lot smarter. That way you don't have to. Here's my email. I want everyone to know, listen, I love my job and I love teaching agents. And I think that I love helping people get better, because if you're going to get out of the business if you don't have systems in place, because you're going to be so stressed all the time. And I'm so naturally driven by systems that this was easy for me to say. I started finding myself starting the same email over and over and over. And finally, after like 3 years, I was like, why don't you just create kind of a template? And that's what you copy paste every time. And each specific buyer just gets some edits to that template. So back to your question. If you came in late, if you didn't hear everything, you have my email and my phone number. What I said in the beginning is I would love to do a one-on-one with you and make sure that everything you need is there. However, this is recorded, so you can go find it and watch it again. I'm going to make Joseph watch it every night just so he can see me. No. And then I teach this once a month. So if you don't have time to watch it or you have other personal things going on, you know that I'll do it again next month. I've had a few people come to this class 2 and 3 times because it was a lot in the beginning. They weren't heavy with buyers yet. So they came a second time because they understood it better and could ask different questions. So feel free to come over and over. But there's my information so you can reach out to me and I'll get you everything you need. And then we can have a follow-up conversation.